Hello, welcome to Exotic Gardening with me, Yorkshire Kris, and we're joined by Joel Robinson here in his garden in Brighouse, which is a relatively new garden, about 3 years old now. And we've been to this garden before. We saw it when Joel first moved in, early plantings, and now in this video we're going to do a full tour of the garden. We're going to see those early plantings from 2 or 3 years ago, then we're going to see the new developments since we last visited last year. So join us for a full tour of the garden.
So this is all fairly new planting. Quite happy with the colocasia pink china that have established themselves well, associating with the hardy begonias and the Roscoia here, Roscoia purpurea, Spice Island, a Trachycarpus here that's establishing itself quite nicely. Idicium densiflorum is about to come into flower.
Oh yeah. So this whole area, this sort of lower part of the garden is quite a sheltered, more luscious jungle style area, I would say, compared to what we're going to see further up in the garden.
Yeah, there was nothing here 3 years ago. There was no planting at all except this magnificent bay tree, which is testimony to the sheltered spot that we're in, really. The Paulownia obviously likes where it is as well. And the Musa sicumensis, which I've long not considered to be a hardy banana in the north of England, has come through the winter fine with some protection.
So that's good. So what was the winter like here in terms of temperatures?
I would say it was a typical winter. We did have lots of frost, and we had late frost as well, which did quite a bit of damage to emerging palm fronds, tetrapanax, that kind of thing. But not a remarkable winter in any sense. We might have had maybe -6, and I've noticed that the lower bits of the garden are a little bit of a frost pocket in that respect. But reasonably happy with the way plants are establishing themselves now.
Yeah,
a third year.
This is quite a nice little variegated. Is it a pelargonium or?
It is a pelargonium, yes, just a bedding pelargonium. I managed to get a few of those at the Harrogate Spring Flower Show. That looks quite nice. There's
quite unusual, that one.
Another scented one down here with small purple flowers. Just something a bit different, really, for the edge of the borders. Yeah. Impatiens Blue Dream is danger of being a bit of a thug.
It's looking nice and healthy there, because I think mine doesn't get enough water where I've got it in a pot. And this looks, a lot healthier.
Yeah. It's taking over a little bit, but it's easy enough to rein in when it needs it. The Musa Bastiu is coming along quite nicely as well. That's now getting some decent sized leaves on it.
Yeah, it's looking good up there.
And there's a bamboo behind it, which I think is Berinda papyrifer, which is starting to put some fairly long culms out now.
Oh yeah. So that is a nice backdrop to the bananas in front and panax.
Yeah. And there's a Manihot Grahamii lurking at the back there.
Have a look at that.
With 2 flowering stems at the moment, which is interesting. It'll be nice to get seed.
Oh yeah. But that doesn't stay out in the garden. Does it come in for winter?
It hasn't done, but I think now that it's got enough of a woody trunk, I do have another one. So it might be its first winter. We'll see how it does. I mean, they're completely deciduous, so I could protect it, give it some protection, and that wouldn't be detrimental to it.
Yeah.
Maybe wrap it or give it some straw.
And the Monstera comes in as well, I guess.
The Monstera is now a little bit big on the big side, and I think Catherine would be happy if it didn't come in, because it dominates the lounge a little bit, but it's nice as a little backdrop plant there.
Yeah, it's got wonderful leaves, very large leaves. It's good for this sort of shady corner.
Yeah. And we've got everybody seems to have them these days, the Vasconelia pubescens, the mountain papaya. And I've got 2 here either side of the steps. Hoping one's male, one's female. That would be nice.
Yeah, and you'll get those wonderful fruit then.
Yes, yeah.
He's grown from seed?
Yeah, from seed. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Right, let's walk up the steps.
Yeah.
And
there's a little Aptenia there, which is just doing its thing in that ornamental pot.
So this garden is on several levels, isn't it? And we've visited a few times before, and we'll see the progress since our last visit.
There's a few gems hiding behind you there, Kris. In there we've got Tetrapanax Mayfeng reaching for the stars, and that's really well established now on two stems, and it's actually quite different in its leaf form from the Rex and the other forms that I've got.
Excellent. Yeah, so this bed, well, this area's changed from when I last visited, because there's a cabin here on this patio area. And then you've got the bed to one side.
A nice boutia there that came from you some years ago.
Yeah, it's really doing well.
Looking healthy.
Yeah, it's looking nice. Nice strong leaves on that one.
There's somewhere in that corner there is a Camelliorps varsorifera, but it's a little bit shaded out by the Tetrapanax and other things. There's a new Trachycarpus planted here, and I'm quite liking the view from the window in the cabin. It kind of creates the illusion that you're in a jungle.
Through. Here we are in the cabin. Yeah, so you got the view out here through the glass.
And the monstrous Paulownia in the distance over there.
Yeah, that's a wonderful view actually. That's really nice. And we're facing south?
South is that way, so we're facing south-east.
Yeah.
But it's open to the south, which obviously helps with a lot of the sun-loving plants.
Yeah, lovely. So let's go onto this patio area.
A few nice-looking agaves here. This one is completely unidentified, and nobody seems to know what it might be.
Very purple.
It is, and it's been suggested that maybe it is a mangave, but nobody has any idea what it is. So
that's a very unusual one.
It is, and this is very pretty. That one's called Little Sharp.
That's nice.
Not hardy, of course, but nice to be out in the summer. That's a new one to me. That's a Xylonacantha frostbite. This one is a favourite with many people. It looks better the bigger it gets, and that's Parasana Fireball.
Fantastic.
A rarer one here is it's a hybrid called Romani. It's a hybrid between Agave metis and Agave fillifera, but the metis form is the blonde form, the white-leaved one. Hence its coloration there. A couple of nice aloes here. That's an aloe ferox that I grew from seed in 2007.
And then as we go this way,
yeah,
so the most noticeable plant is definitely the banana, the Heniba.
The Enset Heniba, which is a brood.
See the size of it compared to yourself.
Yeah, and the greenhouse, of course.
Huge.
It towers over. It does have a raised bed, of course, that keeps it a foot or so off the ground, but even still, it's a beast.
And this bed here then, so you got a mixture of, well, mostly tender plants in this bed.
Yeah, mostly tender. I think because it's a new bed this year, there's quite a lot of compost in there, and I know from experience that these things sink considerably. So I've planted it with that in mind, and we'll raise the levels before anything very hardy goes in there. There's a Xanthodecia Hercules at the back there, which seems to have finished flowering.
Oh yes,
but
yeah,
that can get
leaves, yeah,
huge, and the flowers are stunning on that one.
Yeah, that's good earlier in the season when you get the flowers, isn't it?
Yeah. There's some gingers in here. Gardnerianum, Hedicium Gardnerianum, seems fairly hardy for me. I have heard people say that they struggle to grow it, but it seems all right for me.
Yeah, and you got a couple of colocasias down here. So you got Pharaoh's Mask on this side.
Yep.
And then this one's looking really nice. It's a very dark leaf one here, which is, did you say this one's?
It's either tea party or teacup.
Right, okay.
But yeah, it is nice. I imagine that would be a magnet for red spider mite trying to overwinter that one in the green. A nice Canna Cleopatra
up there.
Maybe possibly an acquired taste, that one. It doesn't.
Well, you've got the variegation of the leaves and the flowers, haven't you? It's like chimeras. It does have that different colours.
It's got novelty value, I think.
Yeah. And will that stay in the ground, do you think, or will you dig that one?
I would probably bring that one in.
Bring that one in.
Yeah, absolutely. A nice Brugmansia here, which I believe is called Grand Marnier. So it'll be wavy Aloes, I think, is the species, and the scent is incredible in the evening.
Yes, there's a nice flower just at the back. Let's get a shot of that one. Wonderful.
This is an interesting plant. It's flowered, and I've left these on just in case I might get some seed heads. It's a rare form of Bilbergia nutans, one of the hardier bromeliads, and unlike the typical form, it has very turgid leaves, and I'm going to divide that and send bits of it to friends quite soon.
Very nice. We've got more plants, I guess plants in pots along here.
Yeah. Another raised bed is planned for this corner, so there's plenty of plants ready for it. Lots of gingers, some Trachycarpus lurking down there, which are a hybrid between Princeps and Wagnerianus, which will ultimately have a home. Some hardy begonias, Eucomis, Geranium madurense, some Arisemas, a Himalayan chestnut. I just propagate plants and they just multiply, and I have too many all the time. A recent one that's come back from recent holidays is Xanthodecia African Gold, with these quite nice golden striations on the leaves, the variegation, which will kind of add to the flowering.
See that one?
Yeah.
Should be hardy then.
Should be, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The only Portlia currently in my collection hasn't yet been planted out. The label's faded, but I think it's Lutea, and I think I've grown that from seed. Quite a pretty flower on it.
Yeah, it's really nice yellow flower.
Yeah. So that will have pride of joy somewhere eventually. A rubus here, I think, from Vietnam. So it's a blackberry, and apparently the edible blackberries are very nice as well.
You get the corrugated leaves on that, haven't you? So
yeah.
Texture.
That's one that will be planted out eventually when it gets a place. This is my lower greenhouse where a lot of the young seedlings are grown. There's cacti and agaves, some interesting aloes. There's an unusual echeveria or two in there. A load of aeoniums on the bottom shelf that are coming along nicely.
Fantastic. And is this greenhouse kept frost-free?
It's heated now to about 4 degrees, just because of the heating costs, which some plants actually prefer.
Yeah. But some plants do want that dormancy, don't they? They want to stop growing.
Some cacti will flower better for having that as well. But an interesting echeveria here, which is from very high elevations, which I'm looking forward to trying. Mucronatum, it says. From 3,400 meters, Pico de Arizaba in Mexico.
It should
have some hard in it. Yeah, and that'll be interesting. Another form of Echeveria rosea, which again I'm looking forward to trying outside. This probably the hardiest Echeveria there is, rosea. It's called the red form of Echeveria rosea. It tends to flower in the winter as well. That should be interesting. And
so is your sort of idea in terms of growing all these plants, trying to find the hardier versions?
Yes, absolutely. And as we'll see on the upper level, the cacti and succulents that I need to protect here, keep them dry. Other parts of the country, even other parts of Yorkshire, are a little bit drier than here. But if they've got the cold hardiness, then it's worth trying. It's worth giving them a go. I have another form, interestingly here, of Aloe striatula, or Aloeampelos striatula, as it's now known. Now this one just says that it's the orange form. So be interested to see what that comes out like.
So we've looked at these sort of more tender tropical big leaf plants down here. I think if we move up, we'll go to the more arid, sort of Mediterranean or arid sort of plantings we have. So
yeah, absolutely. I'll follow
several levels. So we've got these steps here, and then we come to some amazing plants here in full sun. Just pan around, you can see all these arid plantings. Shall we start over here in this corner and see what we have? So I can see a large filifera in front of us.
Yeah, there's Yucca filifera there. Behind it, not looking too healthy, is a Yucca rigida, which has been gifted to me, and I've decided to plant it out and hope for the best. And in the 2 or 3 weeks it's been there, you can see that central growth has just appeared. It's growing, it's doing something. So I plan to keep that dry in the winter, and I think that's the problem with Yucca rigida, is it's got the cold hardiness, but it doesn't like the winter wet.
Yeah.
Similar in some ways to Yucca brevifolia, otherwise known as the Joshua tree, which theoretically can take -12, but it just can't take the winter wet coming from the Mojave Desert. The problem with rigida is it looks a lot like rostrata, which is probably a much better choice of yucca for the garden. But you know, it's a big old plant. Let's just give it a chance and see how it does.
There it goes.
Down here we have the old man of the Andes. Now that's not yet been planted out. I've had that a few years, and I'm led to believe it's a good one for trying outdoors in the garden. So I may well, Oreos Sirius Celsianus, I believe that's called.
Fantastic. And if we go back up to the main bed, can't not talk about this huge, almost bluish agave here.
Yeah, acquired as a agave Salmiana ferox, which it's almost certainly not, but it's a form of Salmiana or a hybrid of Salmiana, possibly involving Asperima. It's got a very nice olive blue colour to the leaf, quite distinctive, and a bit of a twist as well in the leaf as well.
Yes, I noticed that at the top there, yeah.
Distinctive, but it's a stunning plant, and I bought this when I moved in 3 years ago to console myself on having to rehome a large agave montana, which is doing very well in its new home in Yorkgate Garden, as I understand.
I believe it is. I saw it early this year. It's still doing well. Good.
Yeah. There's an Apuntia shearii lurking behind here, threatening to be kind of swallowed up by the big agave. That's a very good choice of Apuntia for a UK garden. Doesn't need any protection, and has a decent size, so it has presence in the garden. So that's a good one for the UK garden. A smaller agave parii that I've had for a number of years, which has shrunk in the time I've had it, but it seems happy enough. It's fine. It's doing okay. This here is a Hespero Yucca Whipleyi, which gets to an enormous size eventually, and is absolutely lethal as well. I
seen the rigid leaves.
I had a close encounter with one in Tom Hart Dyke's garden at Lullingstone Castle shortly before it flowered, and I kind of reversed into it and knew about it. There's an agave Lofantha that I've planted out this year. Grew that from seed many years ago and really neglected it. It's had many winters outside with no protection, and has come through and survived, so it deserves a chance, really.
Yeah, I mean, this bed here then, so we've got this obviously stone wall behind, we're south facing, and then the actual construction of the beds themselves are raised beds, which are what, about 90 centimetres tall, something like that, maybe a bit less.
Yeah, I mean, these are 20 centimetres.
20 centimetres, okay.
60 centimetres tall.
60 centimetres tall there, and that's mainly, is it grits, gravel?
Yeah, I mean, the bed was here at 2 sleepers high when I moved in, and it was filled with soil. So I've improved the drainage as best I could, but it's certainly not just full of grit. There's lots of soil in there.
Soil in there.
Because certainly the agave, the Trichocereus terschekii, the smaller cacti are going to get some winter protection to keep them dry. Then it keeps the substrate dry as well to some extent, which helps them a lot. Same for this raised bed as well. It was already here, but I've raised the level and I've brought just pure grit in. I mean, gravel is just as good as horticultural grit. I think
add that drainage.
Yeah, some gravel is probably a good idea. A larger grade of gravels is probably a good idea. This agave here is Agave metis var albidior. Theoretically only hardy to about -8, but it's one of the more mesic agaves, meaning that its tolerance of wet, its natural rainfall levels are on the higher side among agaves. So it's a bit of a compromise between moisture tolerance and cold hardiness. Agave utahensis is hardy to -20, but it gets about 200 millimetres of rainfall a year. Whereas this is probably comfortable with 600 or 700 millimetres and more.
Yeah, it's got beautiful, very fine teeth on the margins, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And this one has a powdery farina, which gives it this kind of white alabaster look in habitat, which actually washes off in the rain.
Yeah. Then you've got an extremely old cacti.
61 years old. The label, when I acquired it in 2013, said it was grown from seed in March 1961, and the seed came from ABCN, or Abbybrook Cactus Nursery. This is a Serencia formosa, subspecies formosa. It's flowered well already this year, and has 1 or 2 flower buds yet to come. So I'll expect to see a couple more yellow flowers before the year's out. The flowers are stunning, absolutely beautiful.
Fantastic, and obviously that's one that's protected every winter.
It is, and it's just, I usually knock stakes in the ground and will fix polycarbonate sheets to it. Corrugated clear plastic is useful because you can use it to wrap around things, and that's what the Trichocereus terschekii gets as well. A few more newly planted things around here. This has gone in this year, and this is another Serencia. It is Serencia formosa, but it has the old name of Serencia randallii, which is synonymous with formosa. Slightly different, and sometimes these trade names are useful in keeping the distinctions. A little agave Parii vartusii that I've grown from seed there, and that should potentially be one of, if not the hardiest form of Parii. The problem with Agave Parii is it has a wide natural distribution, so its hardiness can vary a lot. But if you whittle it down to a form such as Cusii, and it has a range where it's going to be subjected to cold temperatures, then you can safely say that form is one of the hardier forms.
Brilliant. And then unmistakable aloe here.
Yep, aloe polyphylla, the spiral aloe of Lesotho. This one was grown from seed by me, and I've been fortunate enough this year to exchange pollen with another grower who actually has a plant that I also grew from seed, and we can see these seed heads that are forming now, and over the next month or two hopefully they'll split open and reveal that we have lots of viable seed.
Fantastic, absolutely stunning plants, and obviously you found it hard enough to have in the garden.
Again, experience has taught me that it needs protection, and experience has also taught me that just a cover can easily be compromised by blizzarding snow, by horizontal rain. So I put sides on as well to ensure that the plant is dry all winter. And I've planted 2 more out in the garden this summer. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to keep them all alive and have some cross-pollination going on in future years.
Fantastic. I will carry on down this bed, and we've got more to see.
I will just mention that there seems to be some new regulation around Aloe polyphylla. Its endangered status is nothing new, and it's CITES Appendix 1 in terms of its endangeredness But I'm led to believe that new DEFRA rules mean that in order to sell the plant, even in the UK, you need a special permit now. So
Right, okay.
that's an interesting development. I might try and apply for a permit simply because there couldn't be a more sustainable way of conserving the plant than growing it from seed
Exactly.
in the UK.
Yeah, yeah. And it's relatively easy from seed in terms of, it's quite an unusual way we germinate the seeds. But
Yes, in water,
Yeah.
Germinates reliably in water and not reliably through any other method.
Yeah.
It is a temperamental plant, and if you were to start out with 100 plants, you might end up with a dozen at the end of year 4 or 5. You know, it's difficult.
Yeah, but once they get going, as you've shown in the ground, they do grow pretty fast.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. A nice Agave shidigera here, which is I think it was originally 3 separate plants in one pot. One of them died. Shidigera is still, I think, technically a form of Agave filifera, but is distinctive mainly in the fact that it doesn't produce any offsets at all, and is actually a little bit hardier than filifera as well, maybe a degree hardier, and a little bit more moisture tolerant as well. It's a very good agave for the UK garden, harder to about -10.
Fantastic.
And potentially might do okay unprotected as well, although this one does get a shelter in the winter. I wouldn't want to lose it.
No.
One that isn't widely grown, but has been with me for at least a decade growing outside, closely related to Agave americana, is Agave oroensis. And its form is not unlike Agave ferox or Salmiana ferox, but it's smaller and quite an attractive thing, ultimately.
Yeah, it's a nice one, that.
The Bechon area there is a variegated Bechonaria septrianalis, I'm not sure if I said that right, called Bob Brown of Cotswold Garden Nurseries. That's multiplied well in that space there and is shading out the nice agave behind it, which is a hybrid between Obscura and Lophantha.
Beautiful. I like the variegation on that.
Yeah.
So enjoying against, you know, you've got a stone wall there, you've got a stone wall behind it. So it's got like extra heat, well, not just for this, but for all the plants in these beds here.
Yes, absolutely, and obviously that corner there is the one that faces south the best, because south is behind me over in that direction, so it's in the sunniest spot that it could possibly have there. A nice establishing Echeveria secunda here, which is potentially the hardiest Echeveria, well, the second or third, or certainly one of the better ones for growing outside in the UK. Elegans is another, but that clone came from a chap in Yorkshire who's been growing it for many years and has a large area of that growing outside. So I know it's got the provenance of hardiness anyway.
Beautiful.
The sun's come out.
That's right, let's go. So we'll head down to this area, down a few steps.
Yeah. A few choice palms here, of course.
Wow.
So we've got an area here which is very sunny at this side and benefiting from the due south aspect. And then at this side, it's just got the shade of the wall a little bit, and it's a bit of a difficult area to plant. Is that there's a Mediterranean fan palm doing okay in there. We've got the Hesperantha flowering early this year. They're quite pretty flowers, I think. I do like them. But I might get some fascicularia in there or something like that.
Let's fill that corner over there.
Yeah, fascicularia, I should say.
Over here,
we have a fantastic Agave metis, which I've grown from seed, planted out 2 or 3 years ago, and it very quickly doubled in size.
So how old would you say this is from seed?
From seed, I would say it's maybe 9 or 10 years old.
Okay.
But in most of that period of time, it barely grew because it was contained, and it's only when it was planted out that it's very quickly grown to the size it is now.
So what size was it when you planted it out? I'm just thinking about getting through the first winter and how large it needs to be.
It was probably getting on for, I would say, maybe 10 inches. 20 centimetres maybe in size when it was planted out, literally 2 or 3 years ago.
It's really doubled.
It really has grown. It's really done well as that.
On that.
I mean, there's an Agave filifera there that seems to have had a little bit of winter damage. It's had a clear plastic cloche for the winter. Maybe the humidity wasn't great. There's also the less hardy subspecies of fascicularia, bicolour subspecies, bicolour there. It tends to have a shorter, broader leaf, is a bit shy to flower, but is a much more ornamental plant. And with a bit of winter protection, that has survived fine. So I'm quite happy that that plant has kind of some potential in the garden if I protect it at least.
Brilliant. And then in this corner behind, we've got a nice cycas.
A cycas pansiwaensis, which I grew from seed in 2003.
Wow, it's 21 years old.
And it is now a nice plant, and it's probably going to have to be planted out at some stage, but has always been overwintered in a conservatory or a greenhouse up to now. And
so probably faster growing, do you think, than Cycas revoluta?
Well, the stories that we're doing the rounds and have done for many years are that it quickly grows a trunk taller, faster than revoluta. It's hardier and is supposed to be a better candidate for the garden. It didn't grow fast for me. I don't suppose they are fast-growing plants, and to get to a cordate size that's going to start growing upwards is going to take several years anyway. So, I mean, it remains to be seen, but I think probably I have to plant it out at some stage and try.
Try the bullet and put it in the ground.
How it goes. Yeah,
that's the way it does.
Absolutely. Here we have an Ochagavia carnea, one of a couple of plants that I managed to pick up on eBay years ago as small seedlings, and I've had the pleasure of seeing this growing in the Tresco Abbey garden earlier in the summer, just encrusting whole hillsides that were flowering very well.
Amazing.
It seems to be a very hardy bromeliad, certainly on a par with the fascicularias.
Is it regular flower or?
It flowers most years. I mean, one of my plants has flowered this year. I've actually split the plant and divided it to try and get more propagations from it, and in doing so discovered that it had flowered and I hadn't noticed this year. So usually it flowers, again, similar to the fascicularia. It has a central rosette of flowers, but the Ochagavias are pink, whereas the fascicularias are usually blue flowers, from Chile, from South America.
Fantastic. So this area here is completely different from when I last visited. Got new raised beds. This a recent project?
It is, yeah, just completed this year, and there's a mixture of cold hardy and tender plants in here because the aloe polyphylla is going to take 2 or 3 years to reach its eventual size. So it kind of makes sense to plant a few ornamental things, a bit of summer bedding in between as well while it's doing its thing. And I mean, here's a nice Cotyledon cuneatum, which I grew from seed, a random seed choice. It's quite different from the other cotyledons. It's obviously not hardy, but is just a bit interesting and a bit different.
Yeah, it's got really unusual leaves on that one.
Yeah. Aeonium haworthii is one of the better ones to try outdoors, and I do have a few of those, so that might be left out. It might just be hardy enough. It's actually a very nice Aeonium in its own right as well, with those pink leaf edges. It's quite a pretty plant.
It's really nice.
We've got another aloe here, which is Aloe eclonis, a grass aloe, which is believed to have hardiness of certainly colder than -7, and once the root structure is established, it's supposed to be able to regrow from frost, so we'll see. But it will be protected, it'll be kept dry in the winter. A little Echeveria elegans here, which is another of the hardy Echeverias. Again, keep them dry, they've got a better chance, but some people get away with not doing so. A bit risky, but this is a form of aloe arborescens. I remember seeing on Gardener's World a few years ago somebody growing arborescens in Birmingham, protecting it with bubble wrap every winter, and it kept it going for a long time. And this is supposed to be subspecies Mzimniati, M-Z-I-M-N-Y-A-T-I.
Right, a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, and not one that there's much information about, but it's a smaller form of Aloe arborescens, and it's a big plant anyways, is Aloe arborescens, so a smaller form would be good. Agave bracteosa, of course, one of the best agaves for a UK garden. And,
very hardy.
Very hardy, and very harmless as well. It's
not spiky at all, is it?
It's not spiky at all. The rumour has it that it's been reclassified, and its new genus is Paleo Agave bracteosa. So it's in theory been split away from the genus Agave completely, which is an interesting development. A couple of mesems there growing over the edge, which have found their way back from UK holidays, is an invasive species on the south coast, Carpobrotus edulis, and I find it barely hardy in the UK. Survives a few winters and then tends not to survive, but it can trail and get quite big, so it's quite a nice plant if you can establish it. More tender things here, aeoniums, another cotyledon orbiculata there. But in among there we've got the odd hardy cactus over there, which is an Echinocerius, one of the nicer ones. The flowers are beautiful on those, and they're very cold hardy.
Fantastic. So this new bed here then, so I'm assuming everything in terms of the grit and the soil you've put in here and chosen, so it is extremely free draining.
Yes, and no more than 50% topsoil has gone in there, so the drainage is very important. I did have a Trachycarpus wagnerianus planted here. It's lurking over there, not looking very well, and the hole that I dug for it basically created a sump, and the quality of the soil was so bad that the trachy has in fact died in that spot. So I've raised it up, and obviously it's suited in its position for arid planting, and continues the theme that we've got here.
Yeah.
Well.
If we move down this bed here,
so I've dug up and divided Ochagavia carnea and replanted some. So that's a little bit untidy at the moment, but I'm hoping that will spread and maybe grow a little bit over the edge here as well, and hopefully flower as it has done in earlier years. Fingers crossed. A few more bits and pieces in here. We've got a young seed-grown Agave xylonacantha.
This one.
Another Aeonium haworthii there. Another Echinocerius here. I think that's called Rigidissima or something like that. Very pretty flowers. And very cold hardy, which is very important. A few other cacti that are very cold hardy.
So do you find most of the cacti flower in spring or end of winter, or?
They do usually kind of spring, early summer is when most of them tend to flower, to be honest. Yes, yeah. Dasylirium there, which hopefully will get big and do its thing.
And then in the corner we've got a very nice specimen here.
A brand new Yucca rostrata, which has just gone in.
That's wonderful.
And hopefully will do its thing.
So that will get to a decent height pretty quickly over the next probably 3 to 5 years.
Hopefully, I'm hoping so, yes. Yeah, I mean, my other one has flowered before now, and it really did set it back. So I think I would cut the flowers off in retrospect, and as others have done, to try and preserve the nice rosette, or this spherical growth of foliage. A few more kind of herbaceous things here in this bed, and that's a Xanthodecia that I grew from seed from Jungle Seeds in 2003.
Wow.
Called Pink Mist, and it's been giving us cut flowers for quite a while now.
Look in there. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, beautiful.
And that is hardy, so it's an unusual Xanthodecia, and
quite a large plant.
It is, yes, absolutely. Edicium forestii is new to me, a good one to grow. Not flowered yet, but hopefully will do soon. We've got some eucomis lurking down there. A rather nice persicaria behind the old man of the Andes here called brushstrokes, which is the largest leaf persicaria that I've come across.
That is a
And even
that one.
a nice little impatiens down there as well. That's a new one to me. With
Yeah.
Hedychium densiflorum behind that's soon to be in flower as well.
Very nice. Very good. So we've now moved to the top of the garden. This is a sloped, stepped garden. And as we pan round, we can see the elevation we're on. And at the top here, we've got the greenhouse. And then I guess, Joel, this is an area where you overwinter plants, propagate plants.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's virtually impossible to get in here in the winter usually. At the moment, I've got lots of Ochagavia, fascicularia cuttings that I've taken that are rooting. There's some puntias in there, lots of cacti succulents, and the usual worry of how will I fit them all back in the greenhouse in winter as well, which is usually a problem.
And then at the very top of the garden, an area where I guess it's in development.
It is, and it's a bit of a problem area. It's got a lot of ground elder. There were some large sycamores that were felled, and the trunks are still growing. There's no way of getting a stump grinder up here to pull them out. I've tried copper nails and a few other things, but I'm going to have to persevere before I can really develop this garden. It needs some steps, some more raised beds. It has the potential for some arid planting up this side, and maybe the greenhouse as well can be moved to a lower part of the garden and free up a bit more garden as well. So
Yeah, so a garden's never done, is it? There's always areas to develop. And
a finished garden is a dead garden.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Joel, for showing me around the garden once more. It's been great to see the new developments and how things have established over the last couple of years, and hopefully I can come back in future and see how you developed the rest of the garden.
You're very welcome, Chris, and I look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening. Join me next week. I'll be doing more in the garden.